What if the map of North America, yes, our North America, suddenly wasn't as permanent as we thought? What if a single province, frustrated, angry, and pushed to its limit, decided it had finally had enough? And what if that province looked south, not as a neighbor, but as a future home? Sounds impossible, right? Sounds like the fever dream of a political sci-fi novelist. But let me ask you something. What happens when a country ignores the part of itself that keeps the lights on? Because buried beneath Canada's politeness and America's power is a geopolitical fault line, and it runs straight through the heart of Alberta. Body. How a province becomes a powder keg. Alberta isn't just another province quietly sipping double-doubles in a snowstorm. It's the economic engine of Canada. Oil-rich, fiercely independent, culturally conservative, and increasingly tired of what it sees as Ottawa's interference. For decades, Alberta has carried more than its weight. Between 2007 and 2022, it contributed over $240 billion more to the federal pot than it received. Imagine paying into a system that constantly tells you to sacrifice your prosperity while benefiting regions that vote against your interests. Eventually, resentment becomes identity. Then came the perfect storm: carbon taxes, pipeline battles, and a global pandemic that tanked oil prices. Suddenly, the province that always gave was forced to take. And even then, accounting for national debt, Alberta still ended up a net contributor. And people noticed. Movements like Wexit were dismissed as fringe at first, until polls showed 1 in 3 Albertans would consider leaving Canada altogether. Alberta isn't just another province quietly sipping double-doubles in a snowstorm. It's the economic engine of Canada. Oil-rich, fiercely independent, culturally conservative, and increasingly tired of what it sees as Ottawa's interference. For decades, Alberta has carried more than its weight. That's not a protest. That's a pressure cooker. And when people start talking separation, the next question is unavoidable. Separate into what? Would Alberta go it alone? Maybe. But independence is tough, expensive, and politically radioactive. So some Albertans ask the unthinkable. If not Canada, why not the United States? Economically, the province is already halfway there. More than 80% of Alberta's exports go to the US. Pipelines lead south. Oil refineries rely on American demand. Trade, tourism, industry, they're already deeply entwined. And if Alberta ever broke from Canada, Washington would have a monumental choice: recognize it, ignore it, or make an offer. After all, Alberta holds one of the world's largest oil reserves, bigger than every US state, even Texas. From a strategic standpoint, that's not just attractive, that's irresistible. But let's pump the brakes. Annexation, real, legal annexation, is a labyrinth. Alberta would need a clean independence reef. It would need painful negotiations with Ottawa. It would need international recognition. And then, and only then, could it even ask to join the US. Congress would have to say yes. The president would have to say yes. And a deeply polarized America would have to accept a new state that's politically redder than Montana, richer than Louisiana, and larger than California in land area. But imagine if, somehow, it happened. Overnight, Alberta's economy switches to the US dollar. Oil becomes part of America's domestic supply. US military bases pop up in Edmonton or Cold Lake. Carbon taxes vanish. Investment surges. But so do questions. What happens to Indigenous treaties? What happens to universal health care? What happens to a Canadian identity Albertans spent generations building? Because becoming American doesn't just change the passport. It changes the culture, the politics, the sense of belonging, and not everyone would welcome that shift. And if Alberta broke away, would Saskatchewan follow? Manitoba? Would British Columbia carve its own Pacific Republic? Would Quebec finally choose independence, fracturing the country entirely? If Alberta leaves, Canada trembles. If Alberta joins the United States, Canada shatters. This isn't just a hypothetical. It's a geopolitical domino line, and all it takes is one push. So, could the map change? Could the United States annex part of Canada? Not by force. Not by pressure. Not by empire. Those days are gone. But by choice? By economic desperation? By political alienation? By a province that feels unheard enough to walk away? That's not impossible. That's not even unlikely. That's plausible. The real question isn't whether Alberta could join the United States. The real question is this: what happens when a nation stops listening to the people who power it? Because maps don't change when borders weaken. Maps change when loyalty does. Like and subscribe for more deep dives. Because in Global Brief, the line between impossible and inevitable is thinner than you think.